Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 74 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. We are here on a bitterly cold February evening. Michigan, make up your mind.
Seriously. Yeah, my kids have a snow day, another snow day tomorrow.
Snow day?
I'm going to go out of my mind.
There's no way.
Yeah,
You're staying home?
Well, what am I supposed to do? I have young children. I can't just abandon them.
No, I said they're staying home.
Well, yeah, if there's a snow day, they're staying home and I'm there with them.
Okay, so you're the real victim here.
I am the real victim here. Right, I love my family, but we've had a lot of togetherness lately.
A lot of togetherness, compounded with the COVIDs and so forth.
Enough already.
All right, let's get on to the Ad Nauseam.
All right.
My name is Dr. David C. Noe, and we are here in the vomitorium on a Februscary evening with my good friend, Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle. And how are you, Jeff?
Well, I think I just told you how I felt.
Okay, never mind.
Things, right? No, but no, I'm doing well. I'm excited about the topic. How are you doing?
Thank you for asking.
Yes,
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's probably too early to plug any beverages that support us, but let's just say I had a cup of tea earlier today.
Oh,
no caffeine, but very invigorating.
That explains the bounce in your step this evening?
The bounce in my step. No one's ever accused me of that. So tonight we're going to be talking about the boy wonder of 5th century Athens.
We are. Alcibiades.
Yes, Alcibiades. The mutilation of the herms.
Yes.
And
the profaning of the mysteries. The double whammy.
We're going to get all that done in the next hour?
I think we can do it.
All right.
Yep.
But first,
we have a shout out.
We do. This goes to my friend, good friend, in fact, Christopher Chelpka.
Chelpka.
I think that's a Eastern European name?
It looks maybe Slavic or Polish,
I don't know
perhaps?
if we are supposed to speculate. This guy is amazing.
Tell me about him.
He used to be a professional cellist.
Really?
Yes, and now he's a pastor in the sun-drenched, sun-soaked region of Arizona.
What part of Arizona is he from?
I think he's in Tucson. Is that how we say
Tucson?
that? Tucson.
Tucson.
Right. With his wife and kids. He's an OPC pastor like myself. He enjoys classics because it's so enjoyable.
And is he getting that from this podcast?
Yeah, can you believe it? Yeah. He calls it interesting, inspiring, amusing, layered.
Layered?
Yeah.
Man.
Like a wedding cake.
Yes.
And beautiful. He has been listening to AN from the beginning with his son, 15 years old. He loves the show, recommends it often.
Oh, man.
A self-described super fan.
So he's just, can we describe him as a super fan?
Well, he says that he is.
Okay.
He identifies as a super fan.
Okay, well, then he's a super fan.
Yeah. And he's the owner of a Ratio 8.
Oh, my God. I hope he used the coupon code.
I don't think it exists. Yeah, I don't think it existed at the time.
Oh.
This could have been a private arrangement.
Gotcha.
But he's got one and he's enjoying it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Christopher, for listening and for being a super fan. That's awesome.
And we have more news to break, don't we?
Yes, we do. We have the winner of the ratio sweepstakes.
Yes, and this goes to, you got to put a drum roll in here, Mishka. Mr. Brent Schubert.
Brent.
Yes.
They drew his name.
Yes, that's right. So Mark was telling me, look, we got this number of entries. Plug it into the Google randomizer, and it'll spit out a number. It spit out the number 52, and that was Mr. Brent Schubert, or Brant, as Mark accidentally called him. So he's the winner of a Ratio 6.
Congratulations, Brent. You're going to love this thing.
Yes, and a complimentary pound of coffee. Compliments of the hosts. You didn't know about this, right?
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
You're throwing that in there?
I said the hosts.
Oh.
It's plural.
I guess I'm responsible
That's
for
right,
it.
from Madcap Coffee here in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Fantastic.
So, Jeff, let's get on to it.
Yes.
And you have the Ope quote?
Yes. Should we say something about a bit of the subject matter tonight before we dive into it?
Well, I'm a little anxious about it,
I know
honestly.
you are.
So
yeah.
Why don't you say a few words about the risk, almost risque nature?
Yeah. So we're talking about Alcibiades and the mutilation of the herms. And when we talk about these things called the herms,
You're struggling here.
I am, because
it's a description of the male anatomy.
It is, right. These are kind of a statue with a head of Hermes on the top, but also a very visible male member on them. Right. So we know that a lot of kids listen to the show, and we know that parents listen to the show with their kids, and so we just want to be give a heads up.
Yeah, I'm going to be frank and candid. If this content, of course, it's not going to be, prurient or inappropriate.
No.
But we have to describe a couple of things in the course of the show. So, just be aware of that.
And we're going to do our best to do it delicately.
Absolutely.
Without taking away from kind of the punch of the subject matter.
That's
too.
correct.
Yep.
So here's the Ope quote. Here's oping you like it.
Yeah, man. All right. The classical Greek herm is a partly aniconic, typically archaizing statue consisting of a rectangular pillar topped with a stylized bust of Hermes, horizontal cutting at the shoulder height to accommodate a crossbeam or brace midway down, and visible on the front a depiction of the male member. The herms, says Thucydides, is an ubiquitous Athenian icon. While the origin of the herm remains controversial, its widespread popularity is well attested. According to the Pseudo-Platonic Hipparchus, the herms were initiated by Hipparchus as distance markers halfway between Athens and each of its rural demes. They included within Athens a three-headed herm at a crossroads in the northwest corner of the city, near what would have been the city's principal gateway, pointing to the direction of the various paths. These road markers are supported by archaeological evidence, although the Hipparchian herms are probably not the origin of the herm form. So these statues were very important to the ancient Athenians, for not just for marking distance, as the quote here suggests, but for protecting the landscape in a kind of a religious, theological, spiritual sense.
So you got a herm there. It shows you how far it is to Athens and how to get there.
Yes.
But it's also warding off evil spirits,
right?
Claiming this is Hermes, the god of traveling, is going to protect you on the way.
Exactly right. And protecting those weird liminal spaces where creepy ghosts like to hang out.
Yeah, do we need to ring a bell every time you say liminal?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You swig a drink there.
All right,
time,
so
right?
true story. My wife and my eldest daughter, we were in Athens 2014. We are in the Stoa of Attalus, the reconstructed Stoa. You know where it is?
Of course.
In the Agora, a beautiful spot. And we come across one of these herms, and of course they say, "What is this?" And then I explain, this is an Athenian road marker.
Yes.
Very unusual.
Very unusual,
Right?
right.
It's so strange in our experience.
Yes.
I don't know, were the Athenians trying to be funny? Were they trying to be a mix of funny and reverent? What exactly is happening?
I don't think we fully know. I talk about this when I introduce Hermes to my mythology classes. And yes, to the modern eye, these things look so strange because of kind of the sexual content. And I always try to explain that I think what's going on is that the ancient Athenians, not just the ancient Greeks, but you see it with Romans, you see it around the world. I think there's this association with the presentation of the obscene, things that shouldn't be revealed in civilized, polite culture. Right. That kind of shocking revelation of it had the effect of scaring off and warding off evil spirits, and that's its function. And so it looks salacious to the modern eye. Yeah. But I think to the ancient, it did not. It did not have that function.
That's really interesting.
Right.
It's not easy to explain to students when you're touring them around either.
No, it's very true.
Very strange.
So this will come up again. I mean, these were the things that Alcibiades involved in mutilating, and we're going to talk about why that was such a big deal.
Okay.
All right.
So today we're covering a scandalous episode.
Yes.
Right? And a turning point in the history of classical Athens.
Yes, we are.
The profaning of the mysteries and the mutilation of the herms by Alcibiades and his, what's this word here?
Entourage?
Entourage.
Yes.
Entouragi.
Yeah.
On the eve of the Sicilian expedition, which is 415, right? They're going to sail off to Sicily and crush those allies of the Spartans,
right,
and demonstrate their hegemony.
Right, a controversial move, and one that military historians still debate. Like, why did the Athenians actually do this in the middle of a war that was already turning badly for them?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about that. Some of the military aspects. We're going to talk about why this episode is such a turning point, what it has to do, and what it reveals about the personality of this guy Alcibiades. I mean, in some ways, you can't make his story up. It's so bizarre.
It's strange.
It is very strange.
And most importantly,
yes,
we're going to give you, Jeff, the chance to talk about liminality.
I think I've already said the word maybe already twice.
Yeah, I think so. So before we start out with the Sicilian expedition, though, a big event next week,
next week?
Tuesday? Are you familiar with what Tuesday is?
What is that? Is it Mardi Gras?
No, it is not Mardi Gras.
No.
It is the 22nd day of the second month of 2022.
That's a lot of twos.
It is. It's 2/22/22. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Which is probably about when this episode will drop, maybe a little after the episode drops.
Yeah. You're excited about this?
I'm not.
This numerological.
No, I'm not.
Happenstance.
I heard just tonight that many of the local kids have 2/22/22 themed activities in their schools.
What are you going to do on that day?
I'm not going to do anything because I'd feel like a third wheel.
What? So the kids are just
That's
like,
it. I'm out of
are
here.
you done?
That's it for tonight. That's all I got.
Tip your waitress.
That's
yes,
right.
He'll be here next week.
All right, let's get back to it. The Sicilian expedition, Jeff.
All right, we should probably back up a little bit about this because the Sicilian expedition takes place roughly about halfway through this devastating war between the Athenians and Spartans. So we should explain a little bit of kind of how we get there.
Yeah, so Thucydides says this is the war to end all wars.
Yes.
Heard that one before, right?
Right. Yeah, right, exactly.
A greater war than the one Herodotus recounted. And Herodotus says, mine's a greater war, the Greco-Persian War, than the one that Homer recounted, right? So you always got to one-up the
They're also
next
trying
guy.
to one-up each other. With,
Exactly.
Yeah, who's got the biggest war, right?
So it breaks out around 430, 429. A plague coincides with the start of the plague.
Yes, that's always struck me as so bizarre.
Yeah.
They at the same time they launched this major war with their most major rival on the Greek mainland, Athens with Sparta.
Right.
This massive plague devastates Athens.
Yes.
I've read that some estimates say that up to a third of the
I've heard
population
that too.
Died.
Yeah, and the male population of Athens may have been, 50,000?
Something like that.
And then the total population may have approached 500,000. I've heard that estimate.
When you
Women, children,
slaves,
medics, and
Yeah.
I think that number's probably a little high, but still a massive city by ancient standards.
right? And then not only that, Pericles, who is the architect of kind of the Athenian democracy to some degree, and he's the guy behind
Behind everything.
behind the building of the Parthenon.
Right.
There's a lot of the stuff that you can still see there.
Trump Towers. He's the Pentacontaitia.
Yes,
Is that the first Trump reference on the podcast?
I think if we go way back, there might have been a couple.
Good memory.
Yeah.
The Pentacontaitia, right? The amazing 50 years, unrivaled until the Medici. He was the guy, and boom.
He dies from the plague.
Dies in the plague. But the Athenians, they carry on. We're going to continue to prosecute this war, and we're going to continue the massive monumental building plan on the Acropolis.
Yes.
They're not going to interrupt that during the war.
No, they're not going to do that too.
It's incredible.
So I think it's one of those those what if questions. If what would the history have looked different if Pericles had survived? And they had more kind of his hand on the tiller. I don't know. I think there's some evidence that he was already kind of on the outs.
Past his prime?
Yeah. But at any rate,
I hadn't heard that before, but I believe it.
yeah. So during if we go back even further, so the Greeks, the various Greek city-states banded together in kind of this hesitant alliance to push back the Persian threat.
Correct.
Right.
It happened on 3 different occasions, right?
Yes.
499, 495, the first Persian threat. Then you've got the place we visited in 490, right?
Yes, Marathon.
10 years later in 480, and then what would be the fall of 480 and the spring of 479, something like that. You got the other 3 major battles.
Thermopylae,
Yep.
Plataea, and Salamis.
Yeah. And drove the Persians back, right? So it was a watershed moment. The first tragedy, actually, by Aeschylus is on the Persians and how we beat them.
Yes, right. The one tragedy that survives that's not about a mythological subject.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is a moment of pan-Hellenism, a brief moment.
Right.
And then it all falls apart.
It is. And Aeschylus, I think he's for a tragedian, he's pretty enthusiastic about the possibility of a kind of a pan-Hellenic culture that's kind of but run by Athens.
Oh, yeah.
And the possibilities of kind of the democracy being kind of a partnership with the gods.
Right.
But already during the Persian Wars, you're having this buildup of Spartan power and Athenian power, and to me, they're kind of destined to clash.
Well, and you have lots of examples, this is for another episode, of Athenian overreach, right? With the Delian League.
Yes.
So all the different city-states, they gather up all this money and they join the Delian League. They deposit on the island of Mytilene.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think that's right. That's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
And so Thucydides talks about this in his history, how the Athenians go and they just they loot the treasury of the Delian League. And,
Yeah.
And it was definitely the nadir of Athenian morality.
Right.
They say, well, we suffered the most in the war. They burned our Acropolis. We're the main defenders of the whole enterprise. We deserve that money.
Right. And then these are kind of these satellite states. The Athenians demand you either pay us, tribute with money,
right,
or you contribute ships to our navy.
Yes.
And the Athenian navy was, of course, what in many ways you won that second wave of the Persian War
at Salamis. Yep.
And so you by giving ships to the Athenian navy as a satellite city-state, you're almost ensuring that Athens is going to stay at the top of that heap.
For sure. Yep. And then so you probably have many people around the Aegeans saying, so we threw off the Persians, now we have Athenian masters.
Right, exactly. We've gone from frying pan to the fire, or just a lateral move. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the middle of this then, like you said, in 430-ish, war breaks out between Athens and Sparta.
Yeah, and more specifically, if I may, Athens and her allies,
yes,
and Sparta and her allies.
Exactly.
Which made it a world war, at least in the Greek world.
Right.
It wasn't just the two city-states, but all of their clients.
Yes. Yep. And so in the middle of this, there's a dispute that breaks out on the island of Sicily, where there had been Greek colonies there for many, many, many years. Right. And it's the same kind of thing. You have these Greek colonies that are allied with one side or the other. Right. And so in this story, it's Segesta is the colony that's on the Athenian side,
and it's on the west. It's on the west side, is it not?
I'm not even sure.
I'm pretty sure it's on the far west side. It's of course named after, according to Virgil, Acestes.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
One of Virgil's men, one of his companions, Acestes. He founded that city.
Oh my, okay.
Segesta. Well, not plausible, but interesting and
right. Perhaps a false etymology.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you been to Sicily?
I have not.
No. It's on my list. I don't want to talk about it.
I haven't been to Crete either.
Oh, yeah.
You have?
I have, just once.
Oh, rub it in.
Yep. So Segesta in this story is being pressured, is being put upon by Silenus, another colony there. And Silenus appeals to the big guy in the block, Syracuse.
Right.
And they want help to run a blockade, kind of starve the Segestans out. And so Segesta is feeling the pinch, and so they appeal to their ally Athens, help.
Now, there's a story. I don't know exactly where it's from. It may be one of the more obscure historians like Diodorus Siculus or Dionysius of Halicarnassus, maybe Plutarch, who's not obscure, that when they make this appeal, right, they want to show that if you come to Sicily, there's a lot of plunder to be taken. So the ambassador, I think these are the Athenian ambassadors, when they come and they visit these different homes. You remember this story?
Yeah.
They have one set of gold plateware for these banquets, and they just shuffle it from house to house, so that when the ambassadors are there, they think, "Oh man, all of these people in Sicily are living high on the hog."
Yeah.
So we have to come here and pick up all this plunder because look, they're all eating off gold plate.
Oh yeah, that's great. I'm
trying to think of an analogy or a metaphor.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe some of my neighbors have better plateware than I do.
There's no doubt.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Well, but when you come over, right? When you visit Chez Noe, you know, we don't serve you Löwenbräu, right?
No,
it's all Heineken
all the time
or higher.
Right.
Löwenbräu's not a real beer.
It is, isn't there?
Löwenbräu?
There was a Löwenbräu.
Really?
Yeah, I'm kind of hearing the jingle in my head.
I always meant it as a joke, like lowbrow. It's Löwenbräu.
It's an unfortunate name, but that was really is a real beer.
Okay, I'm not much of a beer man.
Yeah, me either, but I remember those ads. Yes. Yeah, tonight make it Löwenbräu. Something like that. So there was, you're saying that was maybe one of the...
That was one of the ruses to pull the Athenians into the conflict. Come to Sicily. Everyone's eating off gold plate. There's plunder to be had.
So there's plenty for everybody come and take it. Right.
We'll all be fat and giggly.
So the question arrives in a democratic assembly back in Athens of what should we do? And the two sides, kind of the yes, we should launch the expedition, and the no, this is a bad idea, are respectively taken up by Alcibiades, our wonder boy, who we'll talk more about kind of his background in a moment, and an older, more seasoned perhaps general Nicias.
That's the crusty old dean, is that who we're talking about?
Right. So, and ultimately, the assembly is swayed by Alcibiades' arguments for going for it, and it's as Thucydides tells the story, and again we should remind the listener that Thucydides is, as a historian, He's in the thick of this. He's not writing hundreds of years later.
He was an Athenian naval commander.
Right. So he's a participant, and
he had a very close eyewitness view of everything.
Right. He claims to have kind of witnessed a lot of these speeches, and says I tried to get them down as best I could.
Right. Although he was disgraced and humiliated and out of the war when he wrote it. So
that's true. Right. That might shade it a little bit.
Like when you push me off the Ad Nauseam podcast eventually, and make it more of a monologue.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I know you are.
Well, no, I want to go the solo album.
Yeah,
right.
The sophomore album.
So we'll read a little bit of Thucydides' account of this debate, but it's along these lines. So Alcibiades says, we got to do this, and this is the number of ships and the number of hoplites we're going to need. And Nicias thinking, hey, maybe I can mess with the crowd here a little bit. He says something along the lines. He goes, yeah, we should go, but if we're going to go, we're going to need a lot more than that. He says we're going to need 100 ships, or we're going to need 5,000 hoplites, thinking that the assembly would think, oh, way too much.
Yeah, we're going to overcommit ourselves there.
But the assembly says, sounds good.
It backfired.
It backfires big time.
Yeah, reverse psychology, it's not always going to work.
No, it's a roll of the dice. Yeah. Dave, would you mind reading a little bit of the Greek?
I would love to.
Please, take it away.
I would love to. So this is from Thucydides' book 6, paragraphs 23 and 24. Ein gar autoi elphomen enthende me antipalon monon paraskewasamanoi plein gepros to machimon auton to hoplitikon ala kai hyperbolantes tois pasi molles hutos hoioite esometheton men kratein tada kai dia sosai. Polente nomisai chrei en ala fulois, kai polemiois oiki untas ienai, hus prepe te prote hemera he an kataskosin, elthus kratentes geis, edenai hoti ein sphalontai panta polemia hexusin.
I think Thucydides would be very proud.
I hope so. He'd probably laugh me out of the court. He would say, you're just a barbarian. How could you butcher this beautiful prose I've written?
I disagree. I disagree.
Greek is tonal, right? Goes up and down like that.
I kind of wish you would have thrown some of that in.
I can't do it very well.
Right, yeah.
It's music.
Right.
Anyway, thanks for the compliment.
Sure. And looking at this Greek, have you translated some Thucydides?
Very little.
It's brutal.
It's challenging.
It's very challenging. This Greek I'm looking at here doesn't look that bad, but
no. I mean, I could sight read a fair amount of it, but
right.
I've done less Thucydides than Plato and Herodotus,
right.
For sure.
But yeah, the stuff, I remember doing a seminar in graduate school and just beating my head against the desk.
Tough.
It's tough stuff, right? All right, so the translation we're going to read goes a bit beyond the Greek that Dave just read.
And is this is Richard Crawley, right?
Richard Crawley translation, right? Mm-hmm. I took it from the Perseus Project website. Which you use that ever?
Fairly often, usually to grab the Greek text or the Latin text.
Right.
For translations, I usually go with a PDF, a public domain lobe or something if I don't have time to do it on my own.
Yeah. So this is the translation that's available on the Perseus website, and it's maybe not the best one, but it's very readable.
Now, I just have to ask, is someone going to send in some obit information and other trivia about Richard Crawley?
I don't know if we know anything about Mr. Crawley.
I don't know anything.
No.
It might make your skin crawly.
I don't know do we want to do a deep dive into Crawley?
No. Go for it.
All right. So why don't I read the translation for 23, and then can you pick it up at 24?
Absolutely.
All right. So I believe this is Nicias speaking here. Indeed, even if we leave Athens with a force not only equal to that of the enemy, except in the number of heavy infantry in the field, but even at all points superior to him, we shall still find it difficult to conquer Sicily or save ourselves. We must not disguise from ourselves that we go to found a city among strangers and enemies, and that he who undertakes such an enterprise should be prepared to become master of the country the first day he lands, or failing in this, to find everything hostile to him. Fearing this, and knowing that we shall have need of much good counsel and more good fortune, a hard matter for mortal man to aspire to, I wish as far as may be to make myself independent of fortune before sailing, and when I do sail, to be as safe as a strong force can make me. This I believe to be surest for the country at large, and safest for us to go who are to go on the expedition. If anyone thinks differently, I resign to him my command.
Okay. With this, Nicias concluded, thinking that he should either disgust the Athenians by the magnitude of the undertaking, or, if obliged to sail on the expedition, would thus do so in the safest way possible. The Athenians, however, far from having their taste for the voyage taken away by the burdensomeness of the preparations, became more eager for it than ever. And just the contrary took place of what Nicias had thought, as it was held that he had given good advice and that the expedition would be the safest in the world. All alike fell in love with the enterprise. The older men thought that they would either subdue the places against which they were to sail, or at all events, with so large a force, meet with no disaster. Those in the prime of life felt a longing for foreign sights and spectacles, and had no doubt that they should come safe home again, while the idea of the common people and the soldiery was to earn wages at the moment and make conquests that would supply a never-ending fund of pay for the future. With this enthusiasm of the majority, the few that liked it not feared to appear unpatriotic by holding up their hands against it, and so kept quiet.
I love that how Thucydides goes through this kind of laundry list of possible motivations.
Yes,
right.
This is psychologizing of history.
Right.
Now, the key difference, so I understand, I'm neither an expert in Herodotus or in Thucydides, but the key differences that I understand is, A, Herodotus is a rollicking storyteller.
Yes.
Who pulls in as much of as much as he knows from every source possible and just says, this might be true, that might be true. I'll leave it to you to figure out.
Right.
And lots of supernatural explanations for everything.
Exactly.
This is what the gods wanted. This was Tyche. This was fate. Thucydides, it's a deep psychologizing perspective of what could have probably driven a given actor at a given moment.
Right. It's very human-centered. It's very existential, and the kind of the divine element is thoroughly removed from his analysis.
Absolutely.
And if I remember correctly, I think even in his introduction, he doesn't name names, but there's a fairly thinly veiled reference to Herodotus and saying, this is this guy,
old hack kind of thing.
Yeah.
So which do you prefer?
I think just as you said, if I'm reading for kind of pleasure,
right,
you can't beat Herodotus. Like his version of the Thermopylae episode is fantastic.
It is.
But if you want to,
what's going on in the house of Croesus,
Oh yeah.
Murder, intrigue, incest, adultery. There's just everything.
There's wild stories of the weird things they're doing in Egypt.
Right.
It's very tabloidy.
Exactly.
Right. But Thucydides, you're not going to get You're not getting lots of laughs.
No,
it's very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
I bet he wasn't. And if you were going to go out for a drink with one of those two guys, you're going out with Herodotus.
Absolutely.
Right?
Although Thucydides, he's the kind of guy that would probably pick up the tab.
You think so?
Well, he's got so much self-discipline, right? Everything is just
Yeah.
He probably would arrange a valet or something. He'd have it all worked out and scoped out.
Yeah.
For the first 4 parts of our conversation this evening, we'll be discussing, Herodotus, very, very different.
Do you think Thucydides would have set a good spread on the table, though, or would it be kind of bread and water?
It'd be pretty sparse, I think. Right. It'd be pretty lean.
So, but also, so he gives all these wonderful possible motivations of why people are, enthusiastic or quietly voting for this motion. But you also have kind of, in some ways, a classic Herodotean setup. This is hubris about to meet Nemesis.
That's right.
Right.
Brilliant.
So you can't avoid that. Yeah.
So just to define some terms for our audience, in case they might, I know we have probably the most sophisticated audience,
without a doubt.
Oh, of course. But hubris, right? Hubrizo means to aspire to things that are above your rank.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No. Right.
If you got the goods, you boast, but only to that level. To go above is hubris. And the nemesis?
Nemesis, well, that's that force that kind of takes you from the top of the slide to the bottom of the slide.
Knocks you right down.
Knocks you down.
It's all shoots no ladders, you might say.
Exactly right. And so there's that kind of that Greek notion of balance and being in the middle. Right. So Daedalus and Icarus. Daedalus tells Icarus, "Don't fly too high." That's the one everybody knows. But he also tells him, "Don't fly too low."
Yes, because if you fly too low, the water will kick up into your wings and drag you down.
So you got to find that middle space.
Aristotle, you want a little Aristotle? The maiden agon.
Yes, the
nothing in excess.
Nothing in excess. Yeah. Right.
Keep an even keel.
Right. So if you can graph out the journey of a hubristic actor, when he goes from the very top to the very bottom, it evens out in the middle.
So before we move on to Alcibiades, can we just take a moment to look at some of the specifics of the motivations? Because this is quite fascinating.
Yeah, please.
We'll try to be brief here, but he says the old men thought they would either subdue the places against which they were to sail, or at all events, they'd suffer nothing, meet no disaster. Those in the prime of life, they just wanted some sightseeing and spectacles. We'll get back home safe again.
Right, it's a vacation, yeah.
The common people and the soldiers, what did they want?
They wanted money.
Yeah, those money grubbers, says Thucydides, an aristocratic telling of history, right?
Yeah.
And make conquests that would supply a never-ending fund of pay for the future.
That's right.
So remember when we looted Syracuse? We're still living off those proceeds.
That's right.
Yep. And then finally, the few that didn't like it, why did they keep their mouths shut?
They didn't want to look unpatriotic.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure that's never happened in any war.
No,
right?
no. I mean, especially that last line. It's
brilliant.
It's brilliant. He's got the finger on the pulse there.
Yes.
Right.
Nobody wants to be a part of an unpopular cause. Right.
So yeah, I think that if Herodotus were telling this episode, I think he would treat the Athenian assembly much more as kind of a one-minded collective.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But so yeah, it also it kind of reminds me too of this is kind of like another expedition to Troy. And the various, the only person that really cared about bringing Helen back was Menelaus.
Right.
Everybody else was going for different reasons.
They were very opportunistic.
Yes.
Right. Now, here's a good plausible reason to go attack Troy. It's because of adultery and, insults to our honor.
Yeah.
It really wasn't about that at all.
No.
Which is why Achilles and Odysseus famously said, we don't want any part of this.
Right. They were hiding. They were faking insanity. Right.
Yeah. Achilles was dressing up as a woman.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they were also. I think they were also thinking about what kind of silverware the Trojans had that they could swipe. Yeah, right.
Nice connection there.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna get around to talking about Alcibiades and get down to the scandal that's in the title of the episode. But we should probably pause and do some ads.
Let's
first.
do that. This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Hackett Publishing.
Hackett Publishing.
Offices in Massachusetts and Indianapolis. These guys for 50 years now.
50 years this year.
That's right, 2022. So they started in 1972, have been putting out the highest quality resources, publications for those in classics, political science, Latin American studies, East Asian studies, the whole gambit.
That's right.
Gambit?
Gamut.
Yes. They run the gamut.
Yes, they do run the gamut. Yeah, I recently picked up a translation of Aristophanes' Frogs.
Oh yeah,
Hackett. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the translator's name. But it's my favorite play.
Right.
So I'm always interested how different approaches. But yeah, it's a sleek package. It's very affordable. And a really interesting, lively translation.
Yeah, I think we should just say right now what the listener and viewer can get if they go to Hackett.
Yes, if they go to hackettpublishing.com.
They get 20% off.
Yes, not only that, they get free shipping too.
Yes, so they have to select the title, drop it in their back pocket.
Yep, no, the grocery basket.
Well, that's
you
the metaphor.
Shove it into your pocket.
You could.
Yeah.
There's a virtual pocket. Why don't people use virtual pockets? Why do they have to use a virtual shopping cart?
Because that's like stealing. It's like you're just grabbing off the website and shoving it in your pocket.
I know, but when's the last time you went to a bookstore and used a grocery cart?
How many books are you buying?
That's a mixed metaphor is what that is.
I think last time I was at a bookstore, I think they did have the little kind of emasculating basket. But I've never seen anybody use one.
Emasculating.
It was emasculating.
So put it in there.
Yes.
Just put it in there, and you'll get 20% off and free shipping. It's phenomenal.
But you have to put in the code, though.
The code.
Which is
gotta get to the code.
AN2022.
That's right. So listener, viewer, you got to check this out. It's a great deal.
This episode of Ad Nauseam also brought to you by the Gold River Trading Company. I tried some of their new teas this week. I tried the one you suggested, the cacao.
Did you try the cacao?
The cacao, sorry, yes.
You can drink it, but you can't pronounce it.
That's right.
I think that's their slogan, isn't it?
It tastes better than it sounds?
Yes.
No, something like that. It tastes better than Jeff can pronounce it. And it was great.
Delicious, isn't it?
And a nice aroma.
Very good. It's a chocolatey and fresh. There's nothing stale about it.
Yeah, my son actually said, "Dad, are you making hot chocolate?"
Yeah.
And I said, "This is not for you."
Oh, no.
No, step away. Step away from the receptacle.
This is much, much better.
Much, much better. So I was pleasantly surprised. It's not something I would ordinarily, go for and drink, but it was great. I love their gunpowder green.
Yes.
And their black teas.
So you're like those middle-aged Athenians we were just talking about who say, "Hey, let's do something adventurous."
Yeah, exactly right.
Let's try some of this cacao tea.
Well, they were talking about invading Sicily.
Well, okay. So, I mean, doing
apples and oranges.
6 of one, half a dozen of another. Try a new tea, invade Sicily.
Yeah.
I had some today as well.
What'd you have?
I had the cacao, and I had it in my little device with this. Got a plunger and a spring. I don't think you got one of these.
No.
Sorry. A plunger and a spring and a little ball, and you put the cacao leaves in there, and you steep it. The instructions are very clear. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic. Delicious.
I think you're kind of implying that your cacao is better than what I had because I don't have all the fancy little gadgets.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Gadgets? Yeah.
So, listener, go to goldriverco.com.
Yes.
Just like it sounds. Shop around. It's a great website. They've got the gunpowder black,
green.
the gunpowder green.
Yes, and I forget the name of the black one, but that's also very, very good.
It is very good, and the pyramidal satchels and so forth.
Yeah.
Pick out what you like. Drop it in your whatever you're going to call it, your cardboard box, and then enter this code at checkout to receive 10% off.
ANTEA.
Yes, we want you to up the ante.
Ante. Ad nauseum T. Exactly.
This episode is also brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Ratio Coffee in Portland, Oregon has been making fine coffee machines for a low this past decade. You have the 6.
I got the 6.
You're about to graduate to an 8.
I am. I'm very excited
about to graduate. And I have an 8 with oyster color and nice walnut accents. It's a beautiful machine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my machine is very popular at my house. And I told my wife that, hey, we're going to upgrade to an 8.
Was she hesitant?
She was.
She's a conservative woman, right?
Well, yes, and she's skeptical because she really likes the 6 and says, well, is this really going to be better? Or are we going to regret this?
What kind of hobunk coffee machine are we going to get?
Exactly
right.
It
does invite the question, though.
Yeah.
What happened to the Ratio 7? Where did that go?
Yeah. Did it just skip the step?
Well, if you remember back when we were working in my garage this summer, we tried to put together a Ratio 7 and sent it off to Mark.
What a disaster.
And what did he say?
Was it? I don't even think we would repeat it.
You guys stick to classics. I'll make the coffee machines.
Yes, exactly.
Ratio 7. Everyone knows a coffee machine needs an even number.
So that's what's going on?
I guess
7?
so.
All right,
I just skipped right over it. But the 6, the 8, you got the bloom stage.
Bloom stage.
The brew stage.
The brew stage.
And then the ready.
The ready stage.
And that's where the magic comes.
Yes. Yep. That's my favorite stage because then I can actually drink it.
Yeah. I had a great pot this morning. So listener, viewer, here's what we'd like you to do.
You have to go to, if you want a deal, you can go to ratiocoffee.com.
That's correct.
And you can put in the coupon code ANCO.
Yeah, this one doesn't change, right?
Nope.
This is solid.
It's been solid from the beginning.
Ad nauseum coffee, ANCO.
And this applies to both the 6 and the 8.
That's correct. And you get 15% off. And we just have to say to all of you who are listening, the response to this coupon has been actually mind-blowing.
Phenomenal.
I can't put the numbers on the air, but I guarantee you would be amazed to learn how many of your fellow Ad nauseum listeners have gone the Ratio way.
Yes.
Drinking coffee, reading the classics. So we're so grateful that you have patronized
very much
Ratio and supported this podcast.
Yeah.
So please keep doing that.
Check it out.
Yes. All right, Jeff. So as we get back into it, we're going to use one of my favorite words.
Yes.
Pivot.
We're going to pivot.
We're going to pivot from a general discussion of Thucydides, Herodotus, and Greek history. We're going to focus in a laserly way on the person of Alcibiades and the scandal.
Yes, who was this guy?
Yeah, let's have the brief bio.
So like I think I was saying earlier, it's like you can't make this stuff up. This guy is the Athenian wonder boy. We think he was born around the year 450 BC, which would have made him about 35 when this episode took place. Born to wealth, very well educated, comes from a very well established family.
Wasn't he related to Cimon?
Yes, from Cimon's family.
Right.
So he was kind of
a hero and at times a heel of the
Yes.
Greco-Persian Wars.
Yeah. So he was kind of born to greatness and expected greatness.
Yeah, to the manner born, you might say.
Yep. There's also some evidence he was a ward of Pericles.
Yes.
Although Pericles doesn't seem to have been all that interested in taking on that role.
Warding him.
Right.
Yes, I think he appears in some Plato, right? And he's a student of Socrates.
Socrates seemed to have taken a liking to him.
Right.
He is said to have been very good looking.
Aren't we all?
Very, very talented. One of these polymaths. One of these guys who could do absolutely everything.
Right.
So, but a maddening kind of conflicted figure. So on the one hand, he's said to a very persuasive orator. When he spoke in this assembly, everybody listened. What was the old kind of the accounting when everyone listens,
When E.F. Hutton
E.F. Hutton,
talks,
yes.
you have to point at me like that?
What did I point?
Yeah, you did. You got so excited about this old accounting commercial. Like a member of my... I shouldn't do that. But I was going to say a member of my family, but you know those ads from the 80s and 90s? They stick around.
They do stick around.
Yeah. Where's the beef?
Right. I was just singing the Löwenbräu.
Yes,
jingle,
you were.
Right? That's right. All right. So anyway, so like E.F. Hutton, when Alcibiades would speak, everybody would listen. Magnetic personality. He was a brave soldier.
Extraordinary athlete.
Great athlete.
Yeah.
He had some
Aren't we
Olympic
all?
victories later on in his career.
There was a dark side, right? The
Yes.
reverse of the coin shows Alcibiades as what?
He was a spendthrift. He was extravagant.
Self-centered, womanizer, philanderer, opportunist.
Yep.
Finger to the wind.
Yep. He kind of, and we'll see towards the end of his life, he really just kind of sees which way the wind's blowing and jumps in that direction.
It kind of reminiscent of, I probably can't say the name, we might face a massive lawsuit.
Yeah.
There was a not so distant Italian prime minister who was one of these kinds of guys.
Sure. Right.
Just a very, very dashing wealth, always surrounded by beautiful women. Mm-hmm. The women would kind of say, "Oh, that's just him. That's how he is." Kind of a begrudging respect. And the guys would say, "I want to be like that, right? I want to have that swing in life." And so, even though he was quite obviously corrupt, nobody really minded all that much because he was just a force in nature.
Right. Yeah. No. I was trying to think of who would be a modern corollary. I mean, the guy that you're talking about was no athlete.
No,
right?
I think he was in his late 60s when he assumed power.
Past his athletic prime.
You say
he
that
had
with
one.
such disgust, as though you're out running 5Ks.
Can walk them.
Okay.
Yeah. But he strikes me as a combination too. I think in American politics, he strikes me as kind of Clintonian.
Oh,
kind of smooth talker.
A little younger than Clinton, I guess, when Clinton hit his prime. But definitely, that's a person that, such mercurial talent that even if you disagree with the guy, right, he just has a way of being persuasive.
Right. So you mix that kind of one part Clinton, second part, I don't know, Joe Montana. Michael Phelps, some kind of
I guess
world-class athlete. It's it's a mix you just don't see.
Yeah.
So this was the guy. And so, speaking of his athletic prowess, in the year 416, right in the middle of the war, he competes in the Olympic Games.
Which is like, it's kind of like Athenian NASCAR, isn't it?
Yes.
I would say.
It was the premier event.
Right.
And
well, I mean, NASCAR, that has cultural connotations for some people that they don't like. I don't care. But
yeah.
NASCAR is just massively popular, is my point.
It's huge, yep.
And I guess it's so exciting. I've never been to an event. I don't really watch it. But the people who are there, they're all in, right?
Yeah.
This is gripping. And that's what chariot racing is like for the Athenians.
Right.
Consumes the culture.
I was once visiting friends in North Carolina. These friends were North Carolinian, and huge NASCAR fans. And I was kind of poo-pooing it, like
as you tend to do.
I do, right? And they said you got to come to a race. And I never did, but they were saying, so well, what you do, what you can get are the headphones where you can listen to the dialogue between the pit and the driver.
That would be kind of interesting.
And he was saying that's what's really interesting because you kind of
the coaching and the direction and the strategy.
Exactly. When I was saying, you sit in the seat, you put in front of the gas, and you're kind of slightly turning left at all times, right? And
I want to know do the headphones have headphones? Because I can't tolerate oppressive sound.
Oh,
it drives me nuts. And I think that those events are really loud.
Yeah. So you would want them for kind of the noise canceling.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I would go away sick. I can't handle loud noises like that.
So, the Olympic Games, especially chariot racing at the Olympic Games. There's your NASCAR event.
Exactly, and he won.
He won. I think it's listed. He entered 3 chariot racing events, and he won 5th place, 4th place, and a 1st place.
That's incredible.
And so he comes home as, oh man, the Wonder Boy did it again.
Yeah, you're driving 4 horses at breakneck speed.
Yes.
Just holding onto them by these leather straps.
Right.
Incredible achievement.
Yes, and again, him as a risk taker too. There's lots of people who were maimed and injured and killed doing that kind of stuff.
And this brought him back into influence and respectability among the masses.
So it seemed he kind of went in and out of favor most of the Athenians. They would kind of follow him and then kind of get sick of him. And his victories at Olympia, he came back home a conquering hero, and he. Again, politician that he was, kind of parlayed this into influence and political strength.
You don't see that so much in our context. It's rare that an athlete becomes a politician.
I was thinking
it does happen.
The guy from the Seattle Seahawks, Steve Largent, was
that's right.
Was
he was a
representative?
Republican. I think he was a
senator?
rep, and he may have become a senator. Herschel Walker, the famous running back from Georgia,
He's
running for Senate, I believe.
Is that right? Yeah.
But I guess the athlete track is more greased than the celebrity track. It seems to be that it's harder for a celebrity to become a politician. If you're in music or something like that.
Why do you suppose that is?
I don't know.
What is it?
Sonny Bono became a politician.
He did,
right?
He did. What? Al Franken, the SNL comedian. Yeah. So
I don't know. I think there's an authenticity issue. So actors, comedians, so forth. Those people are really good with words.
Yeah.
Almost too good. The American population maybe is a little suspicious of. Is this just a charade?
Shtick?
Yeah.
Right. Well, they make their living doing something that's false.
Correct.
Right. By pretending to be something they're not.
And with athletes, they're harder to. You envy them for what they're able to do, right? A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just something more morally neutral about athletes.
I think it also has to do with sports being kind of the last meritocracy, right?
Yes.
Where you are judged on your ability alone and nothing. Well, I mean, maybe that's changing now, but nothing else should come into it. You can either run fast and catch and throw, or you can't.
Right. And if you run faster than everybody else, you'll eventually get recognized.
Right. Yeah. And so maybe that's why we maybe inherently see a politician as an athlete as maybe a better politician than an actor.
Right.
Who knows?
Better candidate.
Who knows? All right. So getting down to the scandal here.
Right.
So at this time, he's in Athens.
Alcibiades.
Yep. He's kind of risen to the rank of general. His rival is the General Nicias, who we talked about, and he's chosen as as co-general with Nicias to lead this Sicilian expedition.
Okay. One of the strategoi.
Yes. And that's when scandal strikes.
Okay.
And so on the very eve of the expedition, although I think it's unclear if it's like the eve or it's at least close to.
Could be Eve's Eve.
Eve's, right? They're about ready to sail off.
Okay.
And I love this because we have a very specific date for it. June 7, 415 BC.
Okay.
The Athenians wake up and to this horror, and they see that all of these herms, which you mentioned at the top of the show,
Yes.
have been mutilated, chiseled, broken, knocked over.
It's a marble plinth.
Yes.
Right. It stands about 4.5, maybe 5 feet high at most. There's a carved head of Hermes on the top, and then the male genitalia about halfway down.
Yep.
And these were all defaced and in other ways vandalized and what should we say? Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, they were chiseled up, knocked down. When I've taught this episode in class, I remember I had one student say that it says, "Well, it sounds like a drunken fraternity prank."
It does sound
Right.
like that.
But
Stealing the pig from the competing university.
exactly right. However, it was unlike a fraternity prank in that it was a very serious business.
Yes, it had religious implications.
Right. So as we were saying at the top of the show, to knock these things down and to vandalize them, in some ways, is inviting a kind of negative spiritual attack. You've kind of left the city vulnerable,
Right.
And not only that,
Evil forces.
and then not only that, it's a horrible omen for the expedition to go. So let's read a little bit. This is from the other main source aside from Plutarch on this episode and Alcibiades. From Thucydides on the life of Alcibiades is Plutarch.
Okay.
Who's writing many years later, but
This is from the parallel lives.
Yes.
Right? And this is the life of Alcibiades.
All right, let me do the translation here. This is a translation from.
We're going to skip the Greek?
Oh, do you want to read some more Greek?
I just want to read one sentence.
Oh, please go for it.
Can I do that?
Yes.
'Cause I'm very self-indulgent, as we all know.
Take it away.
Epi psephis de tudemu kai genamenon hetoimon panton pros ton ekplun uchrestach parein ude ta tes he ortes.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Very nice.
And it's quite different than Thucydides.
Very different. Yeah, I think Plutarch's an easier read.
Simple.
He's somewhere, I think, kind of between Thucydides and Herodotus in his and the way he approaches these things.
Balanced style.
But
And what does it mean?
it's so he says, after the people had adopted this motion, all things were made ready for the departure of the fleet. There were some unpropitious signs in portents, especially in connection with the festival, namely the Adonia, which was a festival that involved ritual weeping by the women of the town, mourning the death of Adonis from that famous myth with Aphrodite.
And this is the translation of Bernadette Perrin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Continue, please.
This fell at that time, and little images like dead folk carried forth to burial were in many places exposed to view by the women, who mimicked burial rites, beat their breasts, and sang dirges. Moreover, the mutilation of the herms, most of which in a single night had their faces and forms disfigured, confounded the hearts of many, even among those who usually set small store by such things. So even the ones who didn't,
no big deal,
right? They were bothered by this, instead it portended something bigger. It was said, it is true, that Corinthians had done the deeds.
Typical, right?
Corinthians. Syracuse being a colony of theirs, because that's one of the forces they're going up against, right? In the hope that such portents would check or stop the war. The multitude, however, were not moved by this reasoning, nor by that of those who thought the affair no terrible sign at all, but rather one of the common effects of strong wine, when dissolute youth in mere sport are carried away into wanton acts.
So again, fraternity prank is the idea.
Right. They looked on the occurrence with wrath and fear, thinking it the sign of a bold and courageous conspiracy. They therefore scrutinized keenly every suspicious circumstance, the council and the assembly convening for this purpose many times within a few days. So they were having emergency meetings of the democracy.
Who did this?
Who did this?
And what are the implications?
Right. So this is it's a kind of almost a capital offense that has taken place.
Right.
Right.
It's breaking all of the stop signs, taking down all the yield signs, spray painting all the the traffic signals and so forth.
Yeah.
But so much worse because these all had religious significance.
Right. So again, I think Thucydides would probably ascribe many motives to the people who were upset about this. And to be honest, from Plutarch's take on this, we're not exactly sure if Alcibiades was behind this, but he seems to suggest that his enemies jumped on this and said, oh, yeah, this is a good way to take him down.
Right.
And so Alcibiades had a particular kind of enemy in town named Androcles. And he starts rounding up witnesses. Plutarch suggests that maybe he's paying people off, false witness.
So this is a rival, this guy?
A political rival, someone who resented Alcibiades' kind of quick rise to power. And
the second major enemy, right? He had Nicias, right? Now there's the Androcles also kind of against him.
You don't live a life like Alcibiades lived without making a few enemies down the road. And so they start accusing Alcibiades of doing this. And not only that, added to the charge is that on the same night, he and his friends did a drunken parody of the sacred rites of Eleusis.
Ooh.
Another terrible omen, and something that the Athenians took very, very seriously.
Highly irreligious.
Very irreligious, right.
So why would they do that on the night before the big expedition when the boats are about to sail to Sicily?
Who knows? I mean, I could be easily convinced that it was, he was set up. Maybe something to that effect. We'll never know. But there's enough of this going on that people start to more and more fingers are pointing at Alcibiades,
and this is when he's charged with Asebeia, right?
Asebeia, right? So there's the charge of impiety,
right?
And this comes with a hemlock if you're found convicted. So this is serious business,
right? So this is also quite unusual to our experience as well, right? Those who are more politically progressive, I've often heard them complain about the melding of church and state in America, right? That there are a lot of religious overtones in a lot of our public rituals.
Right.
I'm sympathetic to that complaint. It is there in a lot of places, but it's hard for us to imagine that someone could be actually charged and tried because they didn't say a prayer properly. They didn't say God bless America at the end of their State of the Union speech.
Right.
It doesn't rise to the level of illegality.
Right.
It wasn't taken so seriously.
Right. Yeah, I see it. It kind of bubbles up when someone puts a display of the Ten Commandments on state property, right? And then people get upset about it on both sides. Both sides, right?
Take it down, keep it up. It's a matter of life and death. It goes both ways.
Right.
But no legal action.
Right.
You can't be put in jail and condemned to death like this charge.
Yeah. So Alcibiades, he responds to it by saying, "Go ahead and try me, right? Put me up on charges." He's thinking maybe he can talk his way out of this. He's got powerful friends and
maybe he's innocent and he's got good evidence to that effect.
Possibly. And what's very interesting is that his opponents argue, well, no. you should be allowed to set sail. And maybe they recognize that if this is going to succeed, we need somebody with his talent on board. Sail the expedition, and when you get back, we'll put you up on trial. Yeah.
So that's the nature, I understand, of very talented people. In some ways, they make themselves indispensable. So you may not like them, but for something like this, you really need them.
Yeah. So the assembly decides that's the way we're going to go. Alcibiades, you're going to go, and when you return, then we'll deal with this later. And then another twist: he sails with the expedition. When he comes to Sicily, there's a ship already waiting to take him back home, which is very strange.
Does it have red and blue strobe lights on the prow?
Exactly, pulls him over. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so they say, no, we're taking you back to Athens. And Alcibiades says, okay, I'll go, but I'm not getting on your boat. I'm going to follow in my own ship.
Yeah, that's a classic move.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just follow you back to Athens.
Right. Yeah.
And they fell for it?
They fell for it. Right. Yes. I don't know if money changed hands or he was just that glib of a talker. But so on the way back, he bolts and he flees with that ship and the members of his crew on that ship. Back in Athens, some of his compatriots who are kind of caught up in this lawsuit, they're found guilty and they're condemned to death. And he's also condemned to death in absentia.
Right.
They confiscate his estate,
all his property, all his wealth becomes belongs to the state.
And a huge bounty is put on his head. The Plutarch says a talent.
Okay.
Which is 6,000 drachma, and I found some estimates that for your...
To try to bring it into contemporary terms so we can understand how much money this is.
So if you were kind of a middle-class, skilled worker, this would be 9 years' pay.
Yeah, so not quite $1 million in our terms.
Right.
But very, very high.
A huge amount of money, right? More money than the vast majority of any Athenian had ever seen at one time.
Or more than a classics professor might make.
Way more than that, that's for sure. So, so this mutilation of the herms, the parody of these sacred mysteries of Eleusis, which we will do an episode someday on those, force kind of Alcibiades' hand, at least as he sees it. He takes off, and then this is just, I think this is where his story just gets so strange and so weird. He defects to Sparta.
Yeah.
And he goes to Sparta and says, listen, I'll help you out. I'm the odd man out of Athens. They've condemned me to death. How about if I give you some pointers on how to beat them? And so he becomes the confidant of King August II there.
Yes.
And then proceeds to seduce King Augustus' wife, the Queen of Sparta. And it's Timea was her name. And there's rumors start flying that not only does he have an affair with the Spartan queen, he may be the father of her child. And so as you can imagine, when Agus returns, comes home, finds out about this,
he's pretty upset.
He's upset.
So this is a little bit like Caesar in Egypt, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With Cleopatra.
Exactly.
Very, very similar.
Very similar.
There's a book on this that I read many years ago, written by a man that many people may know, Victor Davis Hansen.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before. Not a great fan of his style. Thereby, he'll never be a guest on the podcast because I just said that. But the book, A War Like No Other, covers these events and covers them very well.
Yeah, he's a recognized expert on Thucydides.
Absolutely.
And a great military historian.
He's done all his homework and then some.
Right. So Alcibiades finds himself in hot water again, and this time he defects to the traditional enemy of Athens and Sparta, the Persians.
Wow, so he's really sticking his finger in the eye of the Athenian people.
Yeah.
You don't like me defecting to Persia? Fine, I'll defect to Sparta.
Right. He's all over the place, right? So here's where we were talking in terms of like finger to the wind. He's saying, okay, who can I persuade to take me in? Who can I get to pay me for the advantage I offer? So he offers advice to the Persian satrap at the time, and he's thinking, listen, this Athens and Sparta, they're bleeding each other out. This might be the time to strike. But Thucydides argues that he wasn't really all that interested in using the Persians to get revenge on the Greeks.
No.
He was trying to grease his way he wanted to kind of set up a return. He wanted to find a way back.
Yeah, triangulate.
Yes, triangulate, right. Yeah, wasn't that's also very a Clintonian.
Yeah, I think it is Clinton.
Yes.
Play one enemy off another enemy by appearing as a savior to both and coming out on top.
Yeah, exactly. So he learns by hook or by crook that there's an oligarchic plot back in Athens to overthrow the democracy. He said, maybe I can get in on that. And he gets messages to some of these would-be revolutionaries. He says, listen, I can promise you Persian money,
Right.
Persian ships. All you got to do is let me in on
Maybe
the game.
some of those fancy Persian linen pants and wicker shields
He wanted those pants.
that Herodotus talks about.
Exactly. Like the bloomers.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Parachute.
MC Hammer pants.
Exactly.
The Hammer pants, yeah. So that falls through, and then this is it just gets weirder and weirder. The Athenian fleet, which had remained loyal to the democracy, they extend an olive branch and say, we need you back.
To him.
To him. So he goes full circle.
Right.
Right. And they say, look, okay, if you come back and help us out, maybe we'll let the whole
Just forget about it all.
the impiety thing slide.
Right. So where does this all end up then? I mean, what is the end of this guy? When does his life end? Where is his final allegiance?
Right. So we know that he dies around the year 404.
Okay.
Which is 11 years after the launch of the Sicilian expedition.
And before the installation of the 30 tyrants?
Yes, I believe so. Very close to that.
The 30 tyrants, these are the persons that the Spartans put in charge of Athenian government
Right.
as a puppet state.
Exactly. So in 404, that's usually the year that's given as the end of the Peloponnesian War, where Athens capitulates.
Okay.
Right. And he dies in that same year, but he does not die in Athens. And so he comes back to the Athenian fleet and actually has some success. He's leading the navy again. He's kind of, the hero's back.
Right.
Imagine, the circle that he goes through. And he actually returns to his home in Athens, and now he's a conquering hero. And it seems that all is forgiven. And the assembly votes not only to keep him on as the naval captain, but to take over the whole enterprise. The war is now in your hands.
So they give him a large, like a living room sectional, right?
Yes.
He's got two of those chairs that recline with a little refrigerator in the
on the side.
yeah, with a USB port and the LED lights underneath.
Cup holder.
Yeah. He's got an Ottoman. The whole thing. He's living the life.
He is living the life.
You just got a little picture of what I think is high luxury and, the privileges of power.
Yeah, down in the man cave with the
living room sectional. I want the seating to stretch in a plush way all around the perimeter.
So not just in your traditional L.
No.
You want the full.
I want a U.
You want a U.
Yep.
Oh man, that does sound nicer right now. Yeah.
So when is this guy gonna die?
Well, not yet.
All right.
And so they give him the run of the war, and it's right at the end, and it all starts to fall apart again. And so by the year 405, right before the end, Alcibiades again says, I better get out of here before they decide to execute me.
Right.
And he goes up to he has an estate up in Thrace. Where
Don't we all?
it doesn't seem like a place to get away from it all, right?
Not really. It's wild and uninhabited.
That's how
It's not like going to Aruba, though.
No. But maybe they have better sectionals up there.
Yeah.
So the Spartans start to overwhelm the Athenian army and the fleet, and even he starts to feel the heat up in Thrace. So he flees one more time to Phrygia, kind of North Turkey,
Right.
As we would call it,
Just south of the Black Sea, right in there.
Yes, and he begs for protection from the local Persian governor there, who offers it, but the Spartans eventually hunt him down. And the Spartans are, they've wanted revenge for what he did to them, abandoning them, seducing their queen. They've got a bounty on his head as well, and they wear the governor down by hook or by crook, and he reveals, he's living in that house over there. And I think, according to one story, I think it might be from Plutarch, is that Alcibiades kind of runs out of the house, kind of one last stand.
Yeah.
It was almost like you heard like suicide by cop.
Yeah.
You kind of run at the.
He's being courageous.
And
The frogmen get him.
They get him and they shoot him down, and thus ends Alcibiades.
As played by Jason Statham?
Who would play Alcibiades?
Not Jason Statham.
Maybe a younger Brad Pitt.
It's got to be like a Bond-like individual, right?
Yes.
Real suave, but there's some danger involved.
Yes. Jason Statham might not be bad.
I don't know.
Daniel Craig.
Have you ever thought of auditioning for the part?
No, this is not me. Who would I be in this particular story? I don't know. So I'd be one of the blurry extras in the background. I've always wanted to be blurry.
A blurry extra?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
these pretzels are making me thirsty.
Wow, that was a great line read right there. I like
Thanks.
that. Yeah. So you can't, like I said, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, what a life. I mean, this would make a great film.
Yes, and has never been done to my knowledge.
No.
Some of the most rich and mineable aspects of antiquity have never been made into movies.
And other episodes you think would make good films, like just off the top of your head?
There's so much personal drama. Well, I think, of course, that the Carthaginian War, right? Because you have grandfathers and sons and grandsons in the 3 stages, and who's like Hannibal, right?
Right.
I think not too many years ago we heard rumors of Vin Diesel playing Hannibal. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't. I could kind of see that, I suppose.
It dropped. It never happened.
No.
Right.
How many of those ideas kind of get so far and then they just kind of fall through?
Yeah, they do.
Right. I had a professor tell a story in graduate school where he had a friend whose job in Hollywood was to simply come up with like a page, just a page-length plot, and then send it off and see where it would go.
Right.
And the only idea that kind of made it to like the second or third stage and then dropped out.
Snakes on a plane?
It was even better. His idea. So the famous the Lost Legion of Varus.
Yes, yeah.
And so I think it was Augustus. Wake up in the middle of the night. Varus, give me back my legions.
Right.
The
My
Teutoburg
eagles.
Forest.
Right.
Yeah, eat my eagles. Right. And his idea was that the lost legions of Varus show up one day in the New York subway. They just come marching up. That was kind of his idea. And the next writer take it from there. And it actually made it down the line. But, yeah.
I never seen that one.
No, it never was never made.
Yeah. That's why.
I'd watch that.
I would.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get out of here,
We
don't
do.
we?
We're
We got
up
to wrap
against it.
this up.
Yep.
Time is running out on us.
You want to tell us a little bit about the Moss method?
I would. I'd like to say if you go to mossmethod.com and check out some of my free instruction, then you can sign up for the paid instruction, and it's expert, self-paced, and accessible. What does it take you from?
It takes you from a neophyte to erudite.
That's right. If you start out as just a little tender shoot of a Greekling or with no information, my 30 years now, almost 30 years of studying and teaching Greek. I'm an old guy. I can impart all of that to you more or less in a compressed and accessible fashion.
So if they go to mossmethod.com, they can find
Exactly.
There's a lot of free stuff there they can
There's
check
free
out.
stuff, of course, a lot of free expert instruction, but also you can come along and study with me. And just tomorrow, we're going to have the Moss Method office hours once again.
Fantastic.
Jump online. We read some Greek, New Testament, Plato. We looked at some Aeschylus. We looked at some Sophocles a couple of weeks ago. It was great fun.
That's better than kind of spending your time looking at the tick torque and the
I
the
think
two U's
so.
and
Absolutely, the tactic and
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
don't
So
waste
learn
your
some
time.
Greek, learn some Latin.
That's right. Thanks also to Mishka, our wonderful engineer, as always. Ken Tamplin and Scott Van Zen for the great music you hear.
Absolutely great stuff. We got Agricola in the studio tonight.
You do,
our
yes.
videographer.
Right. I'm no longer going to accuse him of skulking anymore.
Recording.
I'm seeing what's going on, and I'm
Making us look better than we are.
That's
and
right.
Ever could be.
Yep.
If you like the show, we'd really like it if you could go to youtube.com/adnauseum. Don't forget the V.
Yep.
And sign up to watch. We're getting some good interest, aren't we?
We are getting lots of people signing up, subscribing.
Very grateful for
watching
that.
online. Yep.
Send us, your questions, your suggestions. Dave@adnauseum.com.
Don't forget the V.
Jeff@adnauseum.com.
Again, don't forget the V.
Yes, tell us what you like. Tell us which of us you don't like. Could be both.
Yeah.
And if you purchase one of those products that we hawk, tell us about your experience. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. And if you want to shout out, tell us about yourself. We will plug you.
That's
on
right.
The air. Yep. Now next week.
Next week we're looking at having Ken Bratt,
Oh yes.
friend, advisor, mentor, back into the studio to talk about a topic that he's an expert on, of course, which is the Roman catacombs.
Great subject. Yep.
Places we've both visited and about which he knows a great deal. So we're going to try to get him in for the next episode. May have some bumps, but we're going to have something good teed up next week.
Yes, we are. And Dave, you've got the gustatory party shot this week.
I do. This is one I'm really pleased with. This is from the late Anthony Bourdain, whose life ended very sadly and tragically not too long ago. But from what I understand, he was a fantastic showman, entertainer, and cook, travel expert. And this is what he says from Kitchen Confidential, Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly.
That's a great title.
That's right up our alley, isn't it?
We need a copy of that in the
Culinary
vomitorium.
Underbelly. He says, too lazy to peel fresh? You don't deserve to eat garlic.
I have to agree.
Yes, thanks for listening.
Thanks.